The days of the endless hamster wheel of content creation are over. Hallelujah. Welcome to Exponential. This is where we're really going to cut all of the distractions and busy work out of your marketing efforts and help you really reach the people that you're trying to reach and expand the influence, relevance, and of course, the revenue power of your brand. Now, this isn't necessarily for the ego boost, just going exponential for the sake of more likes or more comments or any sort of vanity metrics. This is really about going exponential because at the end of the day, and you know this, there are people that need what you have. They need to hear your story. They need your offers. They need your solutions. They need what you have to offer. And we also have to think about there are people that may wake up tomorrow and need what you have. There are people that don't know it yet, but in 3 months, a year, 2 years from now, they're going to wake up and need the product or the solution or the service, the story that you are here to share. And the question is, will they know about you? Will they know about your brand? Will they know where they can get that type of support and that this type of support or product or solution even exists? And what we're doing today is making sure that the answer to that is a resounding yes. So welcome in. I'm Daisy. I'm the founder of the Liberated Latina. I'm a vocal activator. I am a marketing strategist and consultant. And over the past nearly 5 years now, I have helped amazing entrepreneurs like yourself go from feeling hidden and the best kept secret online to growing their businesses to 6 figures plus, to growing a really globally relevant brand, being able to show up on national stages, on media platforms, and all the while, of course, doing it in the name of impact, of long-term change that they want to see in the world. And they really wanted to grow their brands to be part of a big change. So if this is you, if this is speaking to you, then you are in the right place. And let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what we are going to cover in the next 60 minutes or so. I'm going to try to have it be a little bit under, but if you've been around my space, you know I can tend to be a little long-winded, but I got my notes here, so I will be looking down to make sure I stay on topic and make sure that we get through everything that we have to get through because they're pretty significant. So the first thing I want to make sure that we do together is turn marketing overwhelm or frustration into effective brand building. There is so much that we can end up doing in our marketing. And if you're anything like me, you end up doing the most because we think that more is better. But in reality, what's even more effective is getting clear on what are the marketing efforts or pathways that are going to best align with you and the brand and the message that you're trying to grow. And how can we make sure that we're solving for global impact and relevance? Because that is the pathway to growing a brand that starts a movement, not just a brand that's here today and gone tomorrow. The next thing that we're going to go through are uncovering the 3 marketing pathways for global brand presence. Again, I don't want you just stuck behind a keyboard and a screen, churning out content, editing videos, creating graphics on Canva, and posting it for minimal reach. We've tried that, right? It's exhausting. And really, what you're after is to get in front of the people that need what you have, and you want to be able to serve those people. I want you to be able to invest the majority of your time cultivating your craft and helping the people that you're here to help, right? Not just trying to get in front of those people. So we are going to talk about, I'm going to show you 3 different marketing pathways that get you outside of that content creation hamster wheel and allow you to see the compounding effect of getting in front of aligned audiences from all different continents and all walks of life. But at the end of the day, the common thread is that they align, they desire, and there's demand for your story and your services and what you have to offer. And then lastly, we're going to talk about some strategic moves that you can make in order to start seeing this exponential growth in your brand presence and your brand relevance in the next 4 months. I know it sounds a little lofty. You're like, I don't know, Daisy, it sounds like a big promise, and I get it, but this is not created on a willy-nilly thing. This is created on what I've seen possible with my clients. I've worked a lot with clients in a 4-month private container, and I've been able to see just how quickly things can start to pick up when you have the necessary elements in not just in your marketing, but also when you are so good at what you do, when you've done the reps, you've seen the results, your stuff, the message, people need what you have. It's just about making those marketing shifts and getting you out of the busy work and getting your marketing to be effective so that you can start seeing this compounding growth in the people that you're able to reach and serve on a daily basis. Okay, so moving right along here, we are going to first start out with seeing where you're at with your brand building. If you know me, or if you've been in any of my free or my paid content, you know that what we absolutely stand against is the copy and paste strategies, the cookie cutter approaches. That is, I'm firmly against it because I've seen and I've heard the frustration from my clients, and I've been in those spaces myself where you pay a good amount of money, often a 3, 4, 5-figure investment, and you're in these spaces with a bunch of people and you're all trying to fit yourselves into exact strategy or this exact formula or framework. And it does work. Maybe for 10, 20% of the people, it works. For the other 80, 90%, they're left feeling like something's not right, like something's not quite clicking. Maybe they get results in the short term, but then 6 months later, they're like, this, I can't keep doing this. And at the end of the day, what I want to create together, what I want to help you see is that we can solve for not just effective results from your marketing, but I want it to be sustainable, right? I want you to be able to love what you're doing, because if you're bored with your, I tell this to my clients all the time, if you're bored, they're bored. If you're bored, we're bored. I don't want you to hate what you're doing for your marketing. Marketing is that channel that helps you translate the power and the genius of your work or your solution and helps you connect with people. At the end of the day, marketing is where humans connect with humans. That's the basis of it, right? Connection. And if you, the visionary, the founder, the facilitator, the mouthpiece of this movement, if you're uninspired, if you're like dreading that you have to get up and do this strategy or this evergreen workshop thing, or if you're trying to force yourself to do something, then that's not only going to break connection that's available to create with your audience, but it's not going to be sustainable. So you're investing all of this effort and energy into something that in 6 months' time, you're not going to be able to get out of bed because you just don't want to do it anymore. And we don't want that, right? We're here to build movements, and that requires longevity, that requires appropriate foundations. And I want you to be able to have a brand and a legacy that truly lasts. I wanted to integrate this before we get into the pathways and the strategies and all of that. I wanted to be able to integrate this because even in this format where we're not in a room together, this is me speaking to all of you that are watching this that find your way here. I want you to be able to add a little bit of personalization to see where exactly you're at and be able to speak to what are some of the key things that you want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on, that you're solving for, before we get into the different pathways and the strategies. So there's going to be 4 stages that we're going to go through here. And the first one is experimentation. So experimentation, I've also attached some archetypes here because I always like to keep in mind not just the business or the brand as an entity, but also the visionary, you, right? The leader. I always want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on both people. So in addition to the stages, there's going to be an archetype to describe what you may be experiencing or going through in this stage. So the experimentation stage is like that entry level stage, right? This is when you are just so hopped up on passion and love for what you do and what you've just discovered oftentimes, right? And you're just like, I need to share this with people. I need more people to know about this. I'm on fire about this. Maybe it's done something significant in your life. You've felt the transformation, you've experienced the power, and you're just like, I need everybody to know about this, right? And a lot of times your mind is not even on this is a business. It's just like pure passion and heart and a desire to serve and to help people. So a lot of times in this stage, either you've just opened your business and legally set up the foundations for that, or coming to the realization of, oh, I guess this is a business. I guess I should set this up and my LLC or set up a bank account or anything like that. And this is also the phase where, because this is the phase of passion and just diving right in, which is so beautiful, there's often a lot of struggle with pricing, not really knowing how to put a number or a monetary amount to this thing that you're doing because you want to help people. There's also some sort of uncertainty with what really is the way that I want to share this thing. There might be a lot of different passions involved in what you want to share with people. So you're trying to figure out how to consolidate all of it, or should you even consolidate it? And there's often a big conversation at this stage around ideal client. Who is my ideal client? How specific should I get? There's a lot of confusion on who this is really for because it feels like it's for everybody, right? So there's a lot of that type of confusion at this stage. And there's a lot of changing of direction, or kind of a stop or start and pivot. So I see a lot in this stage, this passion pursuer gets an idea, they want to open up one-on-one, or they want to open up this challenge, or they want to do this lead magnet. They pursue it, and then maybe 2 months later, they're like, never mind. And then they switch to something else. And I just want to speak to that because you know what? I know online there's a lot of conversation about you need to stick to that one thing. If you go down a path, you need to stick to it. And yes, I get that. But at this stage, if you're in this experimentation stage, this is the time to do that. We can't run before we can walk. And this is such a valuable stage where every time you pursue something and it ends up being like a no, consider why it's a no. Is it a no because it's not exactly popping off like you wanted it to be? So it's more of a feeling of rejection from your audience. That's not necessarily a reason to abandon something if you really feel like it's just a few shifts away from really landing with people. But if you start something and you're like, you know what, I'm not a one-on-one person. I want to be in a big room of people. I want to speak to people. I want to have a packed room. I feed off of energy. Or if you're like, no, I really thrive with intimate, smaller settings, no more than 5 or 6 people. This is the phase to figure that out. So you know what? I stand against everyone that tells you that you need to be perfectly sure at this stage. You got 3 other stages where you can do that. You got 3 other stages where, yes, at that point, when you make a decision, there's a level of discernment and a level of not even certainty, because we're never really certain. Newsflash. No entrepreneur is ever really 100% certain. But in those other phases, there is a different level of just follow through and commitment. There's a lot more that goes into a decision. This phase, you're playing the field, you're gathering information and experience. And with that's why the last point here under you is the resisting of establishment. Because that's not the phase for it. You don't want to drop roots and solidify an offer and this and that. You might just be figuring things out. You may work with something for a while and it may stick. You may work with something for a while and it doesn't stick. And that is a-okay. So in this phase, it's titled "What's Holding You Back," and I don't want that to be a bad thing. I know it's the tone of it is like a negative thing, but it's not. This is what you're facing or you're navigating through during this phase. So in the experimentation phase, the market expertise, really knowing your market and your audience, what works, what doesn't work, your leadership expertise and your skill expertise is all in development. And that's perfect. That takes time. And this is another thing that I really want to impart. Even if you're not in the experimentation phase, this is a good reminder that there is no substitute, there is no shortcut for time, for wisdom. Wisdom is only really gleaned from experiences and time. And a skill set is really refined when you put in the reps, when you are out there doing the thing and you're reiterating and you're learning and you're making mistakes and you're in it, and that there is no replacement for that. So this is the time where you may feel like you're starting from zero, or you're starting from a very new foundation of trying to figure out what your people like, trying to figure out who you people even really are, right? Psychologically, what's their consumer behavior? You might be developing your leadership expertise, which at this stage, everything feels personal, right? If people don't sign up for your challenge, or they don't sign up for your one-on-one offer, or they're not responding to your post, it all feels so personal. And that's something that as you develop in your business, you realize that it's not necessarily personal and something to get down on yourself for. It's information. And that alone has been priceless for me. In the beginning, I used to sit out for a week because nobody signed up for my challenge or nobody showed up to my free masterclass. I used to take it so personal, but really now, if I launch something or if I'm trying to do something and I don't really see the response, it's more of a question. What's missing here? What is it that used to resonate, or what did I used to do that got really good response? Did I do anything different here? Is there a reason why maybe I'm being vague in my language? Maybe I'm not really communicating with potency and with relevance and with specificity. There's now I have more experience to know and grab into the toolkit of, okay, this is not working. Let me see what can work better. What can we tweak? That only comes with time, right? And your skill expertise. You may just be fresh out of a certification, or you may be coming out of really digging deep and being in the learning phase, and now you're implementing it. That's where the real expertise is curated, right? Especially with coaching. The more people you coach, the better you get. If you're creating a sort of product, the more products and the more times you go through that process of collecting market research, creating something, taking it to market, it's the reps. It's the reps. And there is no shortcut for it. There just isn't. So this is the time where you really have to focus on that. And I put here rushing monetization because in this phase too, when you are just so passionate, you're so in it, you might have even gotten your first couple of clients, first couple of sales, right? Then there's this pressure to, okay, excuse me, I have to scale this thing, right? I'm ready for 20K months. I'm ready for a 6-figure business. And whoa, rushing the monetization is going to lead you down a path that you don't want to go down. This is where we have to have a real talk for a second. Ready? Come in closer. We gotta get real here. And this is so unfortunate. I take no pleasure in saying this, but there were people in complementary niches, also in the coaching consulting space with me that started around the same time that I did in 2020. They way outpaced me. They grew to 6 figures in 12 months, 10 months, even shorter sometimes. And I would sit there and think, what's wrong with me? What's going on? Why is this working for them and not for me? The more that I started seeing behind the scenes of those businesses, the more that I saw that they were rushing the monetization to make their business look more credible. They didn't have the proper foundations in this, the market, the leadership, the skill expertise, right? And they were taking shortcuts. They were taking shortcuts in the way that they were selling things, in the way that they were delivering things, and trying to force a certain persona or authority that wasn't there yet. And many of them are no longer around. They've closed their businesses. And I wanted to say that again, it brings me no pleasure to say that, because at the end of the day, I want all of us to win. I want all of us, especially as women of color, I want us all to win. I want us all to really grow and be in this from the long haul. This is about growing a movement to see that ripple effect of impact, but also for the generational impacts of us really leaning into this and being the type of leader and visionary and creative that we want to be. But the more that you rush the monetization, you lose yourself. You lose the values, you lose the integrity, and there's no true staying power. I want all of us to have staying power. So focus on cultivating your leadership, cultivating your skills, getting the reps in, learning your market. The monetization, when you focus on the people and serving them well, the monetization will come as you build on the solid foundation in these next phases. So your strongest opportunity right now is all of that I just said, right? Focus on the skill expertise, focus on serving your people well, treating your audience well, establish your brand story. This is the time, instead of focusing on selling, selling, selling. Yes, of course you can still sell, but I want you to focus on building that connection. I want you to focus on building a community that's emotionally bought in. Because if people are emotionally bought into why your brand exists, ask yourself that. These are great content prompts. Why does my brand exist? What change am I trying to create? How will my audience members' life change because of this brand? Because you decided to open this, how will the world change? How will their world change specifically? And I want you to focus on starting conversations in your content. Okay? I don't want you to post for them to see you. I want you to post for you to see them. I'm going to repeat that. I don't want you to post and create content for you to be seen, for them to see you. I want you to post to see them. I want you to post to speak authentically about what are we really going through here. If you're speaking to a problem or a gap or something that you want to see change in the world, how has it impacted you? How can you open up a bigger conversation around? For me, it was about opening up a bigger conversation around, why are we fearing using our voices? Why are we fearing being seen? Oh, because of all of these things that we've had to overcome, right? This is my story of going from a wallflower to being the founder of this business and getting paid to speak. This is my story, how and opening up that bigger conversation around women owning their voices. So I want you to get the reps in this regard. Open up conversations, have your brand be the center of a bigger global conversation, a bigger global message, and create content to have people feel seen and to invite them to engage with you. Okay, let's go to the next one. After the experimentation phase comes a solidification. I always struggle with saying that sometimes. Solidification. This is the emerging visionary. This is where clarity and true confidence starts to get curated, right? You're very clear on what it is, the solution that you want to bring to market. You're clear on what you're really good at. You're also clear on your message. Like, what is the core thing that you're trying to impart to people? And still, I have clients that are in the solidification, moving into the next stage, and they still have these times where, what am I even saying again? Who's my, that's just, we're in our head too much, okay? But at the end of the day, they know what their brand is really trying to say and communicate to the world. And they're also very clear on what their unique solution is. They're very clear on what are the different unique things that they're tying in their coaching or in their consulting. What are the different elements or unique value that they're creating in their product if they're taking a product to market, right? And the reason why this is created, this sort of clarity is created, is because you've gotten a positive market response. You have gone through sales periods, you've gotten clients, you've helped clients, you've gone to networking events, you've talked about what you do, and you've had positive responses. People have been like, wow, that's so amazing. I really love that. I need that. Hey, why don't you meet this person? Or you start getting referrals, right? You've had positive market response. You might see that your online community is growing. People are learning about you. There's some word of mouth happening, right? That's all part of the solidification stage. There's also something really beautiful that happens in this stage where there's like a realization, like an, oh, wow, of how many people actually need your work. There's this, I think in the experimentation phase, there's so much that's new that sometimes it feels like we're speaking to nobody. And it might feel like we're just trying to get something to work. In the solidification phase, you started talking to people, you've gotten positive market responses, you've helped clients, and you realize, wow, there are so many people that can use this. It's not even funny. And that solidifies this confidence in what you do. There's also the beginning of the sensation of wanting to drop roots, wanting to create foundations, wanting to solidify different offers or your products, your offerings, and starting to create some stability in your processes. So you might have a signature one-on-one program. You might have a signature long-standing membership. You might have a legacy type product that you like. This is like your bread and butter, what you want to stick with for a while, right? Doesn't mean you don't add on after, but you're like, all right, I want this to stay. I want this to stick. What's holding you back in this? And these are just some things to keep in mind if you're in this phase, if this is really speaking to where you're at right now. The temptation here is to focus on going for more visibility or more sales, more visibility, bigger audience, right? Instead of really honing in first on solid foundation setting. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't go for more visibility. I'm talking about completely substituting proper foundation setting and instead going straight for visibility versus I'm working on foundation setting behind the scenes while I also look to lead generate, right? While I also look to expand my brand's influence and impact. What does that mean? So some common mistakes that I see is everything is manual. So I'll see clients where everything as far as their marketing, their sales process, they have to personally like book a sales call. They don't have a scheduler. They have to manually onboard people. They have to manually send them all the email with all the details. They have to manually set up a Zoom recurring appointment. Whatever the processes are, everything is manual. And that's an example of something that can be streamlined with even free softwares and applications. Because if you're working on more and not setting, I made this mistake, by the way. That's why I can attest. If you go for more, and especially if you're here, we're talking about exponential 3xing your reach. Okay. So if we go for exponential and you're doing everything manual or everything is dependent on you churning things out, that's going to be really difficult, right? And I don't want us to go for visibility without also setting simple foundations and processes in place so that you can properly care for the people that are coming in. And you'll notice that's a big theme. I don't want to just have people come in and not be able to properly take care of them because you and I, and everyone else in our community, we are focused on restoring the integrity and the respect and the honoring of this industry, the coaching industry, the entrepreneurship industry. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to create a solid foundation to make sure that people are served well. And with that, it's also the shiny object syndrome, right? Everything you want to do the podcast and you want to do the YouTube and you want to do this and you want to do that. And that's what you're going to see here as we get to the pathways is that we're not doing all the things. We have one thing that's leading your global reach. And then that one thing trickles down and helps you satisfy other pieces of your marketing. If you try to do everything, you're doing nothing and you're not mastering anything. You're going to see that you're exhausted, but you're not quite seeing the reach that you want to see and things feel stagnant. So that's what we don't want, right? So the strongest opportunity here, again, is to hone your marketing and your storytelling skill set. Now you're sure or you're more certain and confident in your brand message. You're more confident in what you have to offer. You're more confident in how it's different and how it works so well. And now we want to master your skill set in communication and expression of that. How do we tell impactful stories that allows a stranger to become emotionally bought into your brand and what you're offering? And then the other thing that I always like to point out here is you're still experimenting, but in a different way. So you get to experiment in your content and how you communicate, how you express, trying out different ways, again, of storytelling or of appealing to people and seeing what really resonates and lands with them, while in the background, we're building the brand foundation so that you have a proper infrastructure to serve the influx of people once they come in. Let's move on to the next one and take a sip of water really quick. Okay, so now we go to refinement. Oh my gosh, I'm so behind in my notes here. Okay, so refinement, the experienced entrepreneur. This is where you're like, this ain't my first rodeo, this ain't my second rodeo, this is probably like my 100th rodeo, right? So this is where you've done a little bit more of that experimentation in your storytelling and your marketing. You're on fire for your message. This is where, especially for something like this, like exponential, this is where you're like, I am ready. You've probably been sitting in your seat this whole freaking workshop. You're like, Daisy, you don't understand. I'm tired of being in the way. I'm tired of feeling like I'm hidden from the people that I know need this. I'm ready to go. I know people need this. I want this to get into the hands and lives of more people. So you're just on fire. You're not confused. You're not willy-nilly about what you do. You're certain and you're solid in what you have and what you want to bring to the world. You've also likely seen that your word of mouth, your referrals are growing. So word is getting out about what you do, what's so special about what you do, about your branding. Volume, this is important. Volume feels more exciting than one-to-one at this stage. This is where your movement leadership is coming in. And this happened to me. All of a sudden, listen, I was always a one-on-one girly. Like bread and butter was one-on-one. And then this was 2023. Beginning of 2023, I was like, I don't want to launch my one-on-one. And that was really weird because it was always my launch cycle. I had my signature program, Seen and Sought After. And that was a 4-month program that I would work with visionaries and entrepreneurs to help them create their unique body of work, their messaging, create what's the bigger movement? How do we create messaging around that? And then how do we market that? How do we translate this into your content, into your marketing strategy? And it was the beginning of 2023. And I had gone through a really big loss. End of 2022, I lost my stepdad. And so I was feeling all sort of funky. Coming to the beginning of 2023, I was like, I don't want to launch this. And that was bizarre because I was a one-on-one girly. Since I had started coaching, I really focused on private coaching and private consulting. So I sat with it. And what came later was so weird. It was like the idea to open and launch a small group came up. And that felt so exciting. I kid you not, the moment that idea came in to the moment I started marketing it was maybe 2 days. I got the idea. I started working on the curriculum came out. I was like, okay, this is a 6 week small group, no more than 8 people. And I started marketing it. And one of my clients that joined, she was part of the group, she told me, I just loved how simply and how certain you were in what you were selling and how simple it was. You were just out there sharing the message. You were just out there so excited and clearly outlining how this will help me in my business. And that was the beginning of Own Your Voice. I haven't run it again since. I want to run it again maybe this year, but it was such a beautiful experience. And I saw how my taste was starting to change. My character and the way that I wanted to see my brand grow started to change. And all of a sudden, I was really excited about volume. I was really excited about the idea that I could launch something and have 10 people in a space, that I could launch something and even in a challenge, have 100 people sign up. That's still a goal of mine. I haven't had 100 people sign up for a free thing yet, but that idea was so exciting. I wanted to see the number of people that knew and were touched by my brand and this message and this movement grow. So you might be in that position where maybe you've been a one-on-one girly like me, or maybe you've done small groups and now you're like, I want this. I want to see my brand reach grow, because that number would mean that's the number of lives that are being touched, of people that are changed, of families that are healed, whatever the thing is that motivates you. And there's also, with that change in taste for volume, there's this desire to diversify how you market and serve. Whereas before, my business model was basically a one-on-one offer. Now it's maybe I could have a one-on-one offer and a small group, and then maybe I have a higher level mastermind. And now you start wanting to diversify how you serve people, because you realize that when you are in front of more people, different types of people are in different types of spaces. They're in different parts of their journey. And maybe they have different preferences. Maybe some people love a one-on-one and other people love a group. They love being in that community. So you start to feel into that and you want to start diversifying where you show up and also how you serve. So this is where that long task list keeps you busy, but overall hidden. You're not really seeing reach grow. You're not really seeing, for example, you might be doing a podcast, YouTube, Instagram, and delivering with your clients and your private clients. And you might feel like you have a long task list and it keeps you busy all day. And you get to the end of the week and you're like, what did I even really do? You don't feel that sense of things are moving forward. You look at your metrics. Your growth hasn't really been reflected in your podcast downloads or in your followers or in your comments. And again, this is not just seeking the vanity metrics, but it's a measure. And you're feeling like you're not necessarily seeing the growth that all of your work should warrant. So this is where we also see that your marketing is keeping you busy, and it may be getting likes within your community and maybe some shares here and there, but it's not playing at the global level. And if we're talking about growing a movement, we got to play at the global level, right? So that's where we want to start strategizing for global visibility. We want to start playing that game. We want to start fostering a message that has global relevance. It's not that we're trying to change what your core messaging is, but you'll see that there's a difference in speaking to just trying to sell an offer versus speaking to a global problem or a global message and growing a community that's emotionally bought in to that message. And this is also about marketing to foster connection at scale. That's really what movement-based marketing is, or marketing to grow a movement is. Now we have our job is to create connection at a mass scale, that one-on-one intimate connection through a piece of content that is seen by thousands, millions of people. Okay. Lastly, the last fourth phase is the mastery. This is the movement leader. And if you notice, the graphic was in a pyramid because a lot of people start out in that experimentation phase. It's one of the, how do I say this? It's very easy to act on a passion. It's not that easy to enter mastery, because mastery at this level is years of dedication and work. It's years of experience. It's years of skill building. It's years of trying and refining again and again. It's time. It's time putting in the reps. And it's also this mastery over how do you connect with people and how do you really preserve the relevance and the potency of your brand. This is when your brand becomes something bigger than you, 10 times over. It becomes more about how can you serve other people versus how do I serve myself and get the attention and the likes and the sort. So this is where you're sought after for your expertise. People know you are the go-to person for this. Daisy is the go-to person for voice and marketing. This person is the person for that. People seek you out for your expertise. They seek you out to come on their podcast. They seek you out to speak to their coaching programs or their clients, their organizations, right? This is also where your free and paid offers gather a global community. You see, all of a sudden, you're doing your free challenge or you release your lead magnet. You have people from the United States, from South America, from Brazil, I was gonna say Brazil, but from Europe, from Japan, right? Whatever. Like you see people coming from all over the world, which is super cool and so special. You also see that your brand is influential in creating change in established industries and really being part of a bigger conversation that helps change societal norms or industry norms. This is the coolest part of growing a brand that has that true influence, that has a whole community around it, because all of a sudden you get to create change, like real change. And when I say that, for example, a lot of my clients are creating brands and movements that are out to change healthcare, that are out to change how healthcare is provided in the United States specifically, and honestly, globally. That's huge. Can you imagine that? Our brands become this force that we can create positive change, potentially save lives. That is huge. What an honor, what a privilege. So this is this is what we're building towards, right? Or if you're here, then this is what you get to steward now, is that level of influence to be able to leave this world better than how we found it. And creativity and innovation, that's really at the forefront of it, right? In order to develop a brand that has that long-term relevance, we have to keep innovating and keep creating. And that's the natural byproduct of being tapped into your audience and your community. What's holding you back in this phase, or things to keep in mind? Preserving that level of creativity and focus at higher stakes is not something to breeze by. And this is why I love having a community like Revolution House. Again, we'll talk more about it later, but there's something to be said about being in a space with people who are, and it's not over you, it's not, we're all playing at this global game together, and we get to support each other and be able to be there for each other, to give each other feedback, to say, hey, have you ever considered doing it this way? Hey, I just did this, it worked really well. How can we do that for you? And being in a community where we all can hold each other, because we can be in a community, but if other people are not motivated to grow something of this level of change, it's not the same. And I say that because I looked for a space like this that also didn't just tell me what to do, but that really fostered my inner movement leader, that fostered my creativity and helped me be who I really want to be and what I want this brand to be, without making me just a clone of who they are, making my business a clone of what theirs is. But being in a community is so important. People that help you, that support you, but don't try to replicate who they are on you. And also maintaining that quality while looking ahead, right? Now you're balancing maintaining what you have and being a proper steward of what you have, but then also having an eye on looking ahead and saying, okay, what's changing? What's relevant now in the market? What's relevant now in the globe? How is my community changing? So it's a lot to balance. Honestly, it's a lot of responsibility to balance. The strongest opportunity here is to leverage collaboration. So here's where we want to look at, how do we place your brand in strategic audiences that already exist, so that you can continue to grow your global network and be able to leverage the brand capital that you have to be able to get these bigger collaborations and partnerships. And it's about strengthening brand presence, not only online, but offline. We want our brands to come to life. We want our movements to come to life. We want people to have unforgettable experiences with our brand and these offers and these, we want it to be part of their lives, right? We don't just want this to be something that they scroll past on social media or something that they see, they double tap and they keep moving. So that's the real opportunity and really exciting part of being at this stage. So if you're in the 2 or 3 or even 4th stage, this is going to be for you. What we're going to go over, the pathways, the marketing shifts are going to be for you. If you're in the experimentation phase, I am so excited for you because, like I said, enjoy the phase that you're in. Do the trial and errors, go out and launch something and change your mind. Enjoy all of this because all of that is going to be information. And if you're in that phase, I would recommend come back to this when you're really ready, when you feel like you have more clarity on your message, you have more clarity on who you're serving, you have more clarity on what makes you unique. Come back to this. And if you need any support, then reach out to me because I would love to connect you with a network of people that can help you where you're at. I could love to send you referrals. I'd love to send you maybe some podcast episodes that I have or free content that I have to help you get some clarity on that. So definitely reach out to me. I want to see you win. I'm in your corner and I want to make sure that you get the support that you need. Although I would recommend don't quite jump into going exponential because that's not quite where you're at right now, but enjoy where you're at. Love it, learn from it, and then come back to this. But like I said, still reach out so I can send you and point you in the right direction and get you plugged in to a supportive network that can help you out. If you're in 2, 3, or 4, let's ride. Let's go into this next section where we're going to talk about some different pathways to go global with your reach and your brand relevance. Okay, the creatives pathway. This is going to be the first pathway that we're going to explore together. So for each of these 3 pathways, we're going to talk a little bit about what might make this a great fit for you so you can self-identify. Again, I want this to be a more personalized and unique approach to your marketing because at the end of the day, your message is unique, your brand is unique, you are unique. So I want to add in little ways for you to make this your own. So we're going to talk about what different ways can you assess if this is for you. We're going to talk about the stats that make this a great option, a lucrative opportunity. We're going to talk about what are some of the objectives, what are we setting out to do with this pathway, and then I'm actually going to share with you a general framework on how applying this pathway can look for you and how it can create that compound effect in your reach. Okay, so we're going to start with the creatives pathway. This is for you if you're a natural creative storyteller, artist, you love the process of creation. You always have these ideas of different posts, different things you want to write about. Maybe you love poetry, maybe you love music. I know for me, I've always loved, this is gonna sound kind of corny, but I used to love making videos, photo slideshows and putting music and editing the photos and the slideshow in a way that will match the lyrics being said in the words. I did it when my oldest brother got married. I made them this like slideshow of different photos from their relationship and putting different music to capture what the photos are representing or songs that are really special to them. I did it for my best friends. I would create like photo slideshows with music and I just loved that process. I loved editing. I loved filming things when I went on spring break, my senior year of college. I took a GoPro everywhere and spliced together this video montage basically, and I love it. I just love that process of bringing things together and creating a short or long piece of work that can emotionally move you, that can bring about memories. I love that process. So maybe you're similar, or maybe you are a musician turned entrepreneur, or maybe again you write poetry or you draw. You're just a natural creative and you love storytelling through that creative process. And you express through the creative process. Or maybe for you, social media being a channel for your creativity is a great option because you want to monetize your platform in many different ways, right? Maybe you don't just want to monetize with the things that you offer your coaching. Maybe you want to monetize with brand partnerships if you have a strong personal brand. Maybe you want to monetize with a creator fund, right? On TikTok, for example. There's so many different ways for you to monetize, but we're going to hone in on using social media for the sake of your business, whatever offers or products that you are bringing to market that are your own. Excuse me. So the stats for this are, I think we know that social media is not going anywhere anytime soon. We know how important it is. We know that increasingly, even some of the biggest companies and brands in this world are prioritizing more and more UGC content, user generated content. They're prioritizing more and more influencers and having that be their marketing priority versus some of the prior historical ways of marketing, like newspapers or magazines or things like that. Even commercials, unless it's like the Super Bowl, like you're doing that commercial, you get so much more reach and engagement and connection when you go via influencers and social media and content creators. It's a huge market. You have 5.07 billion active social media users, and the expected reach is only expected to increase to over 5 billion in just 2 years at the time that I'm recording this in 2025. And this is the thing that we forget about social media. And I know sometimes the algorithm does the algorithm things. I know sometimes it feels like we're not reaching the right amount of people. But here's what I want to say to that. Again, come close. We're going to have a real conversation. The algorithm is only based on how much human connection your content is creating, right? That's what the algorithm feeds off of. It's a code that is used to assess how much human connection are you generating. The platform wants to push content that is engaging people. But if we take out the content, if we take out the algorithm, if we take out all of that, what really is the essence of social media is people connecting with people, right? That's really at the bottom of it. An algorithm is just assessing how are you creating that connection. It's more so if you want to take this path, if you're like, I'm frustrated with social media, but I actually somewhat love the process. I love the process of expressing myself, of being able to create something out of nothing online, to have these legacy pieces of work that storytell, that bring people together. First of all, your audience on social media is not just the X amount of followers that you have. Your audience on social media is the world, is this 5.07 billion people, right? This is what we're looking at here. Your audience, you are creating for that global audience. Not that you're creating for everybody, but you already have a global audience on these social media pages. Now, if we take it a step further and say, yeah, Daisy, but what about the algorithm? Listen, this is just about how well can you create connection. That is our expertise and specialization within Revolution House, because it's more so a matter of how are you creating, how are you storytelling, what are the visuals, what are the videos, what are the words that you're using, how are you creating experiential pieces of content that connect and engage with people. This is more so about knowing how to create connection at scale. So that's one of the objectives here, is to look at how are you creating, how are you communicating, how are you expressing, to refine your skill set. All of those are pillars of Revolution House, so that you can create content that engages people in a bigger conversation, that creates this community at scale, connection at scale. And that's how you're going to be able to amplify your content reach to tap into that bigger audience and have that bigger presence. And we also want to look at how can you foster deeper trust in how you create content so that you can monetize, obviously in a bigger way, but while still maintaining the integrity as you monetize your platforms in different ways. So what's this framework? What are we looking at? Oop, almost knocked over my mic here. What are we looking at as far as the type of framework that we're going to utilize? So first of all, less is more. And I know you're probably like, you're not telling me to post every single day. No. Actually, no. I would rather you reduce production and increase your curation of content that leaves people remembering what they just saw from your brand 2 days from now. If we think about the amount of content that people are ingesting on a daily basis, okay? If you think about it, whenever people are commuting, If they're on the train, they're picking up their phone, right? If they're waiting at a doctor's office, they're picking up their phone. If they're waiting for their kids at pickup line, they're picking up their phone, they're scrolling. What is it about your content that's going to stay in their minds and create that memorable connection, so much so that they emotionally buy into what you're telling them in that piece of content, they follow, and then you develop that relationship so that they buy into the bigger movement at large. That's what we're looking to do here. So I would rather you reduce production and still keeping up in a consistent way, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe you go down from every day to 3 to 4 times a week, but I would rather it be integrating the different strategic ways of creating, of communicating, and a different skill set, a different level of creativity that creates that connection at large. Because guess what? If you create that connection at large, at scale with humans, even if the algorithm doesn't push out your content, they're going to be like, huh, I followed that thing, that person, that page, and I haven't seen them in a while. Let me go search for them. How many times have you done that? I've done that. I've done that many times with friends or people online, even like comfort creators, that they don't show up on my For You page, for example. And I'm like, I wonder what Emily Kaiser's doing. I love Emily Kaiser. I love following her. Her content is a vibe. I'm like, I haven't seen Emily Kaiser in a while. Let me like search her on TikToks. She hasn't come up on my For You page. And then that lets the algorithm know, hey, this person likes to see that. So then she pops up more. But that human connection will beat the algorithm every single time. So that's what we're trying to create here. And in Revolution House, what we focus on, we have trainings already on demand, ready to go for you to dive into. What they show is, how do you create scroll resistant content? How do you create content that engages people, that brings them in, that tells a profound story, that creates a transformation? From the moment that somebody sees your piece of content, they emotionally change, or they have a shift in perspective. They have some sort of transformation from the start to the end of your content. That's what we look to do. And the results are there. One of the testimonials, actually, one of my clients that's in Revolution House followed this framework for scroll resistant content, took her 30 minutes to do, posted it, got so much engagement after feeling like people aren't engaging. I don't know if it's the algorithm and my shadow banned, whatever. She got so much engagement, so much more than any of her other content. And she signed a one-on-one client from that post, from somebody that reached out because that content just really spoke to them. So it works. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is less is more. What your content is going to start doing is start conversations, because that's how you're going to start creating that community and that connection at large, right? So it's really about, this is a prompt for you to think about, what conversations do you wish were happening that you want your brand to be known for? For example, one of the biggest conversations that I wish was happening when I first started really honing in on marketing and visibility and vocal activation, I was like, why is it that we focus so much on marketing strategy and not enough on people's voices? Because I saw that for myself. I'm like, I feel so disconnected from my voice. I'm so afraid of putting myself out there. And yet people throw strategy in my face and tell me that's what's going to work. But how is a strategy going to work if the fuel that creates that connection, my voice, my presence, isn't there? That was the gap. So that was one of the main conversations that I wanted to start, and what I wanted my brand, the Liberated Latina, to be known for, is helping women activate their voices so that they can market and grow a movement. But it starts with us and our voice, right? So think about that. What conversations do you want to start that you wish were happening that just aren't, you haven't seen it? Or maybe the conversation is happening, but not quite in the way that you want to have it, or you want people to consider it, and start creating on that. And then the last piece, this is where we start growing the movement. This is the tactical piece that starts creating that ripple effect and the increasing community and followers and engagement, and really brings a movement to life, is this mission buy-in. So what does that mean? We want to create experiences where people online can start buying into the movement, the mission behind your brand, in a tangible way, in a way where it's not just, oh, that's nice words on a graphic, on a Canva graphic, but like they become the living and breathing testimonials of the movement that you're trying to create. So not only do they buy into it and are they sold, and yeah, I want to stick around in this brand because this is helping me already, but it also, on a strategic standpoint, You invite them into an experience where they start sharing about it and word starts to spread, and you start having this ripple effect of people find out about you, follow you, take part in your curated experience, and then the cycle goes on and on. And once you have a bunch of people behind your mission, that is what gives you true credibility. That is what really solidifies your brand, because people can ignore a nicely curated message or pitch in an email, right? What people can ignore is a mobilized group of people behind your brand. That is what unlocks the bigger stages. That is what unlocks the media exposure. That is what unlocks greater influence behind what you're creating. Okay. You can't fake that. And that's also what solidifies your brand uniquely, right? Somebody else can steal your message. Somebody else can steal your aesthetic. Somebody else can steal whatever it is that you do, but they're not going to have the same mobilized community behind it. So that is invaluable. So what this means is you start some sort of branded challenge or initiative that lead generates itself. So for example, maybe if you're health related, one of my clients, what she did was she was a nurse practitioner and she was starting her own health and wellness coaching brand. So what she did was she had these certain areas that she works with clients on. So a lot of it was around proper sleep and rest. A lot of it was around hydration and making sure that people are properly nourishing themselves. So what she did was she was naturally doing these challenges, these 30-day challenges. It was a 30-day sleep hygiene challenge, helping people get better sleep, giving them a protocol. Hey, this is what your new nighttime routine is going to be. No screens, 30 minutes before bed, or whatever it is, right? And there was another one that was actually doing really well that people really loved. It was a challenge for 30 days to do 30 minutes of activity, even if it's just walking. It's walking, it's dancing. For her, she committed to 30 days of 30-minute walks. And people really loved that because it was a way for them to buy in to this challenge, but also see the results for themselves. They were posting about it. They tag her, right? So now their audience sees it. They're like, hey, what is this? What are you doing? They share about it. Then they take part in it. Then they share about it, right? So this is like the compounding effect of bringing your movement, your message to life on a digital scale. So think about that. What could that look like for you and your brand? And how can you cure this ongoing experience where your people find you and they don't just hit follow and that's the end of it, but you actually invite them in to have an unforgettable experience with your brand? Okay, so next is the collaborators pathway. Specifically with this, we're going to talk about podcasting. Why? Because number one, podcasting is built off of connection, community, collaborations. I'm sorry if the lighting is getting a little weird. There's a lot of clouds. I don't know if it's about to rain or what, but when the cloud covers, my natural lighting is gone. So please excuse that. So for podcasting, it's naturally built off of collaboration in a way that none of the other platforms are really built off of. Like people start a podcast and they want to interview other people. They want to have amazing guests on. They want to go on other platforms, right? So this is such a great opportunity to tap into a community of creators that want to collaborate. And by the way, you don't have to have a podcast. Like, you don't have to have your own podcast because you'll be able to apply this even if you don't. But the second one is you're already tapping into categorized audiences. Every podcast, the title, the description, all of that, they're already growing and already are fostering and nurturing a specific niche of people. They're already there. They're listening to it, right? They're listening to the podcast. So it's a great way to be able to be strategic and intentional with where you go and be able to tap into those audience that are really connected. If people are listening to a 15 to 30 to hour long podcast every week, they're connected, right? They're engaged. They are bought into that podcast. So you're already tapping into a community of people that are not just willy-nilly, but they're really engaged with that person. They likely really trust that person. So if you're able to be on their platform, then you're already shortcutting the no like trust factor because there's trust already there, right? The other aspect to this is podcasting has such a long shelf life because it's based on keywords and it's so searchable. You can create an episode, or you can be a guest on somebody's platform today, and somebody can find it a year from now. Somebody can find it 2 years from now, right? Whereas on Instagram, the shelf life is so short, right? It's like your content is really only pushed like maybe 24 to 48 hours, unless somebody follows you and maybe engages with something, then it might show them more of your old content. But that's more so now that I've seen more of that. But it's just not a long shelf life, right? Again, there's the pros and cons to each of these, but if you love collaborating, you're a natural networker, you like just being and working with other people, you like to work alongside somebody, you're like, it gets a little lonely when it's just me and me talking to a camera and me doing all these things. Or if you're starting with a really small online audience and you want to be able to grow it in a way where you're, again, shortcutting that know and trust factor, then this is an amazing avenue to undergo. And again, the stats are there, right? There's 500 million listeners to podcasts. It's probably more now, honestly. I think the study that I watched was from a couple years ago, so it's probably more. And the audience has doubled since 2019. So honestly, I think that podcasting still has so much room to grow. We still see so many influencers, creators, businesses adopting podcasting, specifically because there is that audio only where you get to basically be there with people as they live their life. It's so much more intimate, which I love about podcasting. And there can be a visual component. And YouTube is also highly searchable, right? People go on YouTube, they search, how do you fix a tire? Or how do you do this? Or they search a day in the life of this expertise, or how do I get better sleep, whatever it is, right? So if you're creating podcasting content on a certain thing, then you can repurpose it on YouTube and also engage more visual audience with a video if you choose to go video. Same thing, two different platforms, highly searchable, and you get to create community in those two different ways. So it's dynamic and you can use it in so many different ways. So the objectives here, again, is to leverage those established communities. You don't have to go out and build a new community yourself. You can just tap into ones that are already there and engaged. You can build also a complementary network. So it's not just tapping into their audience, but you're growing a network of other experts, of other leaders. And that becomes really powerful when you want to launch something. Maybe you have built-in referral partnerships. There's just so much opportunity. You're building connections on all sides there. And again, like I said, you're lengthening the shelf life of your marketing efforts, which we love. Okay, so the framework, okay, so this is where you're gonna start if you wanna implement this. We have to get clear on what are your signature topics. Basically, what are you gonna propose when you go to pitch yourself to these different platforms, when you start these conversations, even if you have friends or other peers that have podcasts, you got to show up to the table with something, right? If you're showing up to the cookout, if you're showing up to the barbecue, what are you bringing with you? We don't want to show up empty handed, right? We have to make sure that you're clear on what are your different signature topics and focusing on differentiation. As a podcast host myself, I want to feel like I'm bringing guests that my audience is going to be like, wow, I haven't heard this perspective anywhere else. I feel like Daisy always has the guests that are so innovative, that are so creative, that are doing something really different. So when we curate your signature topics, we want to focus on differentiation. And then, of course, we want to back with facts, testimonials, research. It's not just about having conversations on podcasts. I know. But we got to get a little strategic with how we show up to these conversations, because it's not just we're chatting willy-nilly. You can, but don't expect to get an influx of people that are bought into your mission and your brand, right? We have to satisfy the inner question that people have, and this is for every piece of content, every aspect of marketing. They're asking, number one, they have to understand what it is, and they have to understand, what is this going to do for me? Is this relevant to me? If it's not relevant to them, their brain is going to say, not relevant, bye. And they're going to go on to the other thing. They have to have an interest, a bought in motivation to listen to you, right? Especially if they're logging in or playing this podcast episode. They love the host, but if they're 10 minutes, 5 minutes, not even 10 minutes, if they're 5 minutes into an interview and they're like, I don't know how this applies to me, it's dragging on, it's not capturing my attention, they're gone. They're out the door. They're gonna be like, I'll come back next week and I'll see what else they got. I don't want the potency of your message and your work and your story to get lost in that. I want people to know, to engage, and to be able to walk away having a firm understanding and a respect for what it is that you're bringing. I don't want it to get lost in these willy-nilly conversations. Again, we can do that, but that's like a separate focus. We're not focusing on that for the purpose of going exponential. So we want to make sure that you show up clear, people are clear on the unique value, on the differentiation of what you're talking about. And we want to make sure that you're coming correct. You're coming with your testimonials, you're coming with the facts, you're coming with research, you're coming with experience and wisdom under your belt. Because more and more on any platform, podcast, Instagram, whatever, people are trying to sniff out who's the real deal and who's just flying by the seat of their pants. They don't want to listen to another episode of somebody just saying, be yourself or love yourself. Or what does that mean? Tell me. I need to know. What am I taking with me at the end of this 30 minutes with you? So that's where we want to really cure. How are you going to show up and call in the right people and really speak to them and get them to feel an emotional buying in of what your brand is all about? Okay, then what we're going to do from there is create your podcast tour, right? We're going to create your little podcast press tour. And this is going to be really fun because you know how celebrities or artists, when they release an album, they go on a press tour. There's a concentrated effort to talk about what they do. They strategically plan out, where do we want to show up? Who do we want to target with this audience? What are the right TV shows, the right influencers now, the right the YouTube channels? Think of like Selena Gomez Rare Beauty. She was going on with all of these makeup influencers on YouTube, these mega influencers, like millions of people. That was strategic, right? So we want to look at, how do we create your own podcast press tour? In Revolution House, we have a podcasting strategist that's going to come in and help you do this. She's going to walk you through, how do you curate your signature topics? How do you curate who to pitch, how to pitch them? And she's going to help you go through that process. You can get those interviews booked. But this is basically where you have to assess, who are you trying to reach? What are you going to be offering them? And in the future, if you have already your offers ready to go, and this is where we want to look at, what are the types of podcasts that have the right audience, but also have a decent amount of reach, right? You don't want to spend this podcast press tour going on an up and coming podcast or a podcast that just started that really has no audience and no reach. We want to be a little bit more strategic with that. Sorry, my dog is right at my feet. Stop it, buddy. And he's like pushing me off of the frame. We want to get that organized. And then the beautiful thing about podcasting is that you do the interview and you have content from that interview. There are artificial intelligence tools now, like Opus, I think, is it like Opus One or something like that, that you can feed in long form content and it creates clips from it. I will say you have to look through the clips. It creates maybe like 10 plus clips. From that, I only 2. I wish it was a little bit better. They'll probably refine it, but we have technology where you can take those long form pieces of content that you've already invested an hour to do and create the short clips from that you can post on your social media, right? So if you have 2 or 3 different clips, you can circulate that. You can brand it, you can tag the host, they share it on their platform, you get in front of their audience and they go to the podcast, they learn more from you, they like you, they follow you. You see how it's like this whole ecosystem. And then here's the other side of it too. Every host is a lead to another podcast. So this is what you want to do. You want to go on these podcasts and you want to leverage the new connection and ask them for a referral to another podcast. So this is where you might start with a press tour of, let's say 6, right? You might pitch, let's say 15, you book 6, being conservative, right? Then from there, each of those 6 introduce you to two new hosts. Each of those 6 introduce you to 2 new hosts. You meet with them, maybe only one of those 2 work out from each host. So at the end, you end up with 12 interviews, right? In your span of 4 months, let's say. Each one reaches about 300 people. Again, being conservative, right? So that means that you have 3,600 new people, 3,600 new people that know about your brand, that potentially can follow you, even if it's half of that, right? See you, that follow you, that are bought into your mission, and then you invite them to some sort of offer or challenge. You can leverage the same idea that we talked about in the creators pathway. Invite them to a challenge, have an automated welcome sequence. Hey, join my whatever challenge and tag me on social media. Be part of my free community. If you're listening to this, tag me, take a screenshot and tag me. There's so many ways to create this collaborative ripple effect of reach for each of those 12. Now those 3,600 become more, and you keep that cycle going. Each new podcast host can introduce you to a few more people, you book those, and the cycle keeps going. The other thing with this too is that in Revolution House, we're going to talk about how do you create a content ecosystem where you're constantly reviving the interview content that you've already created, right? If you have these signature topics, every time you do an interview, you have the clips, you can have a quote, you can have so many different ways that you can extract content. So we're going to walk you through what can that content revival process look like, so you always have something to post without having to sit there and be like what do I post today? Because ideally, right? Or I would assume that if you're loving this, you're not necessarily wanting to sit there and create content all day. Let's work with it. It's not a problem. Let's let your podcasting lead your content strategy while still being effective and growing your reach, right? So that's the podcasting framework. The last one that we're going to talk about is the speaker's pathway. So this is for you if you want to facilitate live experiences, you enjoy being in person, you enjoy the energy of being in a group, and you really want to showcase your story and your expertise live in real time. Speaking market, booming. This is a $1.9 billion market just in the United States, right? And it's growing at 4% each year, which at 1.9 billion, that's a significant increase. There is, especially now post-COVID, there's such a craving for live experiences and being in a room with somebody. And that's really where people can feel your energy. There's an even deeper connection that's formed. So it's an incredible avenue to pursue, whether you've always known that you wanted to be a speaker, or now as you're getting more comfortable with your voice and your message, you're like, I want to get in a room with people. I want to get in there and facilitate something live. So the objectives here are to solidify your brand positioning, because there's something about adding speaker to your description, right, that really establishes you as a thought leader. We want to build long-term brand presence because, again, you're creating deep connections with people and you're bringing this movement to life. Now there are people that have felt you in a room. That's way different than having, let's say, people that have only ever seen you through a screen. And we also want to leverage your speaking and turn that into online lead generation, as well as lead generation from the people that are in the room with you, right? Of course. What does this framework look like? Again, same thing. We want to establish your 3 signature topics so that you can come to the table with something when you pitch. We want to make sure that's focused on differentiation. We want to make sure that you're backing it up with facts, testimonials, research. Anybody can get up there and open their mouth, but what are you bringing to the table? How are you establishing that you know what you're talking about? It goes a long way, right? And we don't have to force something that isn't there. Even if you are 3 years into what you're doing, 5 years into what I'm doing, right? There's so much that I have yet to learn, but I can still start with what I've curated and established up until now and lead with that. Make sure that I've built a case around why I do what I do and why I believe what I believe. I have the testimonials, I have research, I have different facts that I can back up with what I'm offering, right? Same thing with doing something like this, right? I want to make sure that there's some sort of tangible thing that people can hold on to. And then next, we want to build your speaking network and portfolio. So this is where we're going to help you look at what are some free and yes, paid speaking engagements that you can apply to, making sure that, again, it's strategic, it's going to be the right audience, and it's also the right organizations or the right organizers for you to start building a really powerful network that can continue to get you into these different speaking engagements. We're going to have Yvonne come in from Chats with Yvonne. She is an expert in public speaking. She's a public speaking consultant, and she has such great experience with how do you actually get your foot in the door? Even as a new speaker, what do you need to have? And how do you do the vetting process? What are the different websites that you can look at? And she wants to make sure that you actually get booked. So she's going to be coming into Revolution House and facilitating a live training at the time that you're watching this. Depending if you're watching in 2025 or after, it might already be in our library. Regardless, it'll be on demand for you. but she's going to come in and lead a workshop to help you actually get booked on a speaking engagement, not just sit there and create a plan and then do nothing with it. She wants to make sure that at the end of that presentation, you have already vetted certain organizations that you can apply to, whether you're just starting off or whether you're an experienced speaker. So we're not playing around here. This is such a powerful opportunity. And then with that, again, you're letting your speaking lead the way. We want to focus on you really just rocking it on stage. Yvonne will be there to help you with that. And then repurpose that for content, right? You have photos, you can have videos, you can create quotes. There's so much that you can create with what you're already working on for these speaking engagements. And then again, you want to build brand events. So we want to look at how do you leverage the community that you're building through your speaking engagements. Maybe it's not a challenge, but maybe you create summits of your own or live events of your own. Maybe you invite them into some sort of paid or free community. We have to look at also what do you do once they're there. But again, that can look so many different ways. That's what we want to talk about now, right? Implementation. I've given you the general framework that you can start thinking on and seeing, if nothing else. I hope that this showed you that it doesn't just have to be you behind a screen in InShot and CapCut, just editing and creating things all day, posting it and not really seeing it grow, or that marketing has to look a certain way. We can create marketing that, number one, solves for global reach, that also feels really good to you, that plays on your strengths and creates that deep connecting community, right? That builds that movement. But with that, with those frameworks, they rely on different things that have to be there in order for them to work. So what I was talking about earlier, right? A potent voice. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I have heard people say, I try to go live, I have the strategy, I do the workshop, but I just feel like I tense up, my voice becomes like sheepish and I lose my confidence. Or I would love to do these podcast interviews, but I second guess myself. I don't feel confident and rooted in what my voice really is, and how to hone the instrument of my voice to communicate with potency, to actually be effective in that communication, and actually not just something that people hear, but something that moves people, that creates that connection. That is honestly what I'm so passionate about, more than most things that I have to offer, than all things that I have to offer, because it starts with the voice. You can do the podcast, you can do the speaking, you can do the content creation, but it starts with your voice. That is what creates connection, human to human. And in the world of rising prominence of AI, that is going to be your most invaluable business tool. Mark my words, that's going to be the most invaluable business tools. In Revolution House, we have a breakthrough process called vocal activation technique. And it's basically an active meditation that you're guided for 40 minutes. And it helps you have to experience it, but it basically helps you actually know what your voice is. It helps you actually feel who am I? What is my actual voice? And all I know is it transformed my life. It transforms my clients' lives. And there's nothing like being able to turn on the camera, to step on stage, to lead a virtual summit or speak on a virtual summit with a global audience and feel rooted in your voice, feel confident in your voice. You know how to wield it as a powerful tool to bring people in and to make people transform in a room. There's something so powerful about it. That is what takes marketing from being okay, maybe cutesy, right? To just this incredible experience that you facilitate even through a screen or through your content. So that's the first thing. We need a potent voice. The second element here that you need to have unlocked, obviously, is a message, right? And not just a message of why your offer is great or why you started what you started. Yes, that's part of it. But what's the bigger message that's globally relevant? What are people going to want to rally behind? It's not just losing weight, or it's not just growing a business and having 6 figures in a bank account. What is the bigger globally relevant message, and what global problem are you solving? If it's not a big enough problem, it's not going to be something that people are going to find relevant, right? So that's the biggest thing is I want your brand to be at the forefront of leading a change that is so needed and relevant right now. It's likely there, but when we settle on messaging for content to content, what will go viral and this and that, we lose the potency and the depth and the relevance of what your message actually is. And I promise you, that is the whole difference. That is what people are going to be like, raising their hand, fist pumping in their seats, being like, yes, that's exactly what I've been wanting. That's exactly what I've been wanting to hear. That's what I want to get behind. Okay. So it's really about, are you confident in the potency of your message to effectively connect with that global audience at large? We have to get, that has to be a strong yes in order to properly implement all of these different pathways, whichever one you choose. And of course, effective implementation. Like I said, this is just a framework. I never wanted to feel like a copy and paste situation. Even in the implementation of these frameworks, it can look a million different ways depending on your brand, your audience, your business, how much time you want to invest in it, how much time you have, right? It can look so many different ways on your strengths, on your preferences, like the list goes on and on. I only want this to be an eye opener, an inspiration for you to see what's really available and what the type of marketing can look like and feel like to solve for that global reach, to 3x the amount of people that know, connect to, and demand what you have in your brand. But it can look so many different ways, right? And we really want to look at what can we do? How can we strategize to amplify your brand? Yes, in the next 4 months, right? But for years to come. I want this to be about the staying power, the longevity of what's going to work for you and what's going to grow your brand time and time again. So your next steps as we close out here, I don't even know what our time is. I feel like we're way over an hour, but if you're still sticking around, thank you, first of all. And I pray that this was really helpful for you and empowering for you. Your next steps from here are to, number one, what's your path going to be over the next 90 days, 4 months, right? What's your path going to be? Are you going to go the creators route? Are you going to go the podcasting route? Are you going to go the speakers route? What's really calling to you right now? And then I really ask you to consider joining Revolution House. I really do. The next 24 hours from the moment that this goes live, you're going to be able to gain 3 days of private Voxer coaching. Basically, once you join, included in your membership, I'm going to add you to a private messaging app chat, and we're going to be able to private coach on what specifically your implementation can look like. So we're not going vague. I'm literally in it with you for 3 days, working out the details, working out the strategy, working out the messaging one-on-one so that you're ready to go for 4 months, right? And then you'll be in Revolution House where we can continue to have the Q&As. We can continue, you have the community, right? You have the trainings, you have the live vocal activations, but I want you, we're not playing around. I want you to have the support from the very beginning. If you're ready, I'm ready with you. I'm in your corner. And basically the last step is to watch your brand soar and reach revenue and influence. Like, that's really what we're here to do. I truly hope that this was helpful for you. I'm going to go into the next slide. And if you scan the QR code or if you press that link, it's going to take you to the sales page for Revolution House. You can read all about it. You can see testimonials. There is nothing else like this space. I know because I looked for it. I couldn't find it. So I created it. And it has just been incredible, the amount of breakthrough and change and movements that have come to life in this space. I hope to see you in there. If not, I hope to see comments in the comment section below of what you found helpful. What are you going to be adopting next so we can shout you out, so we can support you? And until next time, thank you so much for joining me. I'm Daisy. Follow me on social media at The Liberated Latina. Let's keep the conversation going. And cheers to the rise of your global movement. I cannot wait to see what you do next. Bye.